Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. And today I'm obviously not at the lake. I actually want to go over the tackle, the rods, and basically what I use to fish Lake Mead. So if you guys can, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. You'd definitely be helping me out. And yeah, we're gonna get into it. So I have a specific set of gear that I use specifically for Lake Mead. I typically don't chase after stripers, but some of the tackle that I have tends to catch striper most of the time. Like I said, I usually don't chase them, but I will show you what I tend to use that gets me both bass and striper bites. So I mean, let's start off with this one because this is usually my go-to rod that I have. It has a Guggen Squad Kraken Crawl, which is this right here. I don't know if you guys can see that too well, but you've seen it in the videos before. It's just simple Texas rig with a bobber stop, I mean. And I use tungsten weights. I feel tungsten, you know, it's a little bit smaller and denser, so it weighs a little bit more. Well, it doesn't weigh more, but it's a lot smaller for the same weight, you know, so it keeps the profile a lot smaller, slim. And I find that this tends to go through the water a lot better than using like different lead sinkers and such. But this is my usual go-to for out here, a Texas rig. You just can't beat it. You know, you'll always catch something with the Texas rig. At least I tend to always catch something with this setup. This is, what is this? This is a medium heavy, 7-foot medium heavy rod. I like using the medium heavies for Texas rigs and stuff like that. I feel like it sets the power, like its action, the power. You can really drive that hook in, you know. But this is just one of the rods that I use, like I said. And this is one that I typically use specifically just for Texas rigging. So in some of our videos, you notice that we tend to fish tires, docks, and areas like that, you know, general areas like that. And that's when this Wacky rig would come in handy. I don't usually have it tied on too often, just depends really on the time of the year. Usually early morning when the fish are really shallow, you can knock it out of the park with this. You can't go wrong with the Wacky rig. You know, it's the #1 soft plastic in the world, and it's just a little Wacky rig. And I got I think this is a 3/16 Wacky weight, and then I got 2 little O-rings through the hook right there. That way, when a fish, they won't tear my plastic. The O-ring saves your soft plastic. So that way you don't have to go through soft plastics as much. Like I said, I usually don't have this tied on. I know my buddy, you guys might know him, is Victorious. I put him on the Wacky rig, and ever since then he's been catching fish left and right with it. Man, he even caught a striper with it. But yeah, the Wacky rig is a really good rig, man. You know, like I said, I usually don't use it too often. I mean, I've used it every now and then, and I've caught tons of fish on it, but it depends, you know. Sometimes I'll throw a Wacky, or sometimes I'll throw like a Nico rig. It just really depends on how I'm going to be fishing it, and obviously the cover, you know. So that's just another rod. I think, yeah, this is also a medium heavy. That's like the most common rod that I have, medium heavy. Like this is medium heavy. All my other rods are medium heavy, except for 2 specific rods actually. And then here's another one. This is actually the Abu Garcia Vengeance rod. It's a really good rod. If you guys have it, you'll know it's a really good rod. This is also a medium heavy, 7-foot. And then if you're wondering what reels I have, these are actually Cadence reels. Cadence CB5. I'll show you guys the reel right there. Yeah, this is a brand called Cadence. It's a really good brand. I like their reels. I like them a lot. I have them all over my rods. So fact. And then here's another thing that I use. I use a jig. I usually have a jig tied on. I don't often get too many bites on the jig, but when I do, they're usually from pretty decent fish. I'm talking within like the 3-pound range, 2.5 to 3 pound range, and that's typically pretty good for Lake Mead. For the dinks that they tend to normally produce out here, small 1-pounders, 1.5 pounds. Me, Peter, and a couple other guys that I fish with, we tend to find where like 2 to 3.5 pounders tend to be at, but it all varies. So I like having a jig on all year round. It works really good. And then pair it with like your favorite trailer. You can put the bandito bug on it. You can put any crawl that you like. This specific jig, this is a Carl's bait and tackle Baitcaster, I believe it's called, and it's a really good bait. It's really weedless. It's just a really good jig. And I think this is the 3/8 ounce. And I mean, Lake Mead's pretty deep, but the water's just getting lower, but the fish typically move as the year progresses, so sometimes they'll be pretty deep, even especially during the summer. They'll go down deeper to like maybe 30-40 feet sometimes, but it just depends, how hot it is. There's clouds, wind, everything has something to do with how the fish are going to react that specific day. So it's always going to be different, so another rod that I have is actually the same thing. Now this is a bait I shouldn't even have on this rod, but I'm just going to show it to you guys just for demonstration purposes. This is again another Abu Garcia Vengeance rod. I have 2 of these as well, and another 7-foot medium heavy, and then I actually have a jerkbait on it. And I actually do fish as jerkbait and other jerkbaits with this rod, but I prefer to have like a medium rod with a fast action, something more bendable. Like the next rod that I'm actually going to show you is a perfect jerkbait rod. But this specific jerkbait, I think it's a Rapala. It dives down to like maybe 10 feet or so, and you actually want something to dive a little bit deeper than normal, especially during summer. The fish are going to be a little bit lower, a little bit deeper, just because that sun is going to heat up that water a lot faster, so you want something to get down a little bit deeper, not too deep. Just depends if you're fishing during like the morning, at night, midday. Typically you're not going to get so much bites, only because the sun is fully out. And we're in Vegas, it gets up to like 115, 116, so the water temperature, at least for the first like 4 or 5 feet, is maybe around 82 degrees. It could be like 89 degrees, so it'll obviously fluctuate depending on how hot it is outside. But having a bait that can get down there pretty, not too deep, but past that warm water threshold, I think you'll have a lot of success. I've had success with a lot of jerkbaits. Actually, with this one in particular right here that I have, this Yozuri jerkbait, I've had a lot of good luck with this one. And this doesn't even dive that deep. It's got a small little lip. It dives maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet. So like early morning, really shallow water, this thing shines, and it's got a really nice color to it. It's got a holographic thing going on there. So I like Yozuri baits. Yozuri baits are really nice. It's a Japanese brand. So they actually make them specifically for saltwater, but they have their bass sections and stuff like that, so I mean, I don't know if these are saltwater or freshwater baits, but they work really good for bass. I've caught like 3-pound largemouth on this on Lake Mead, so they work for me, so that's another good bait. And like I said, when it's really hot, you want something with a bigger lip. It'll dive down a lot better, and like I was saying, you want fast action, a medium with a fast action, or like a really fast action, something that's really bendy, so you can get that bait down there deeper, and then you can just jerk it away, so that's another really good bait to have. Jerk bait, like I said, I didn't have the rod paired that with the bait, So this is the rod that I would use for jerk baits, swim baits, and everything like that. And as a matter of fact, I have a little swim bait. It's like a Z-Man jig head right here, and I like to pair that with these Bass Pro Speed Shacks. These are really good. I like these. I've caught striper with this. I've caught smallmouth, largemouth, you know. It's just a little white paddle tail swim bait, just like this. And then I like using smaller jig heads, only because I want the fish to swallow the whole thing instead of just biting the tail off. So, you know, I would just measure where I want that hook to be exposed, not too far down, but just enough where it'll give me nice coverage. It'll be nice and straight, you know, just like this. And then I like a smaller jig head, like I said, only because I like the smaller hook profile. I feel like it gets me more bites over having like a bigger giant hook. So, you know, you want to pair like a good sized bait with your jig heads, obviously. You know, you don't want to put a giant swim bait with like a little jig head, because you're just gonna get less bites, or you're gonna miss more bites because the fish aren't gonna be swallowing that big bait. Usually the way I work from big and then I'll start smaller. So this is like a, what size is this? This is a 3.8, which is almost 4-inch. This is a 3.8 shad. So if this 3.8 shad isn't getting me any hits or any bites, any nibbles, anything like that, I'll start moving smaller. You know, I'm not going to go any bigger, because if they're not swallowing something this size, they're obviously not going to go with something bigger. Now, big swim baits, if you guys have ever fished like S-wavers, or like even those big trout baits that you guys use at Willow Beach, those were probably entice the fish to come out. You know, big swim baits bring out big fish. The bigger your bait, you know, the bigger the fish would more than likely want it. But something with like this, I would use this rod right here. This is a medium, just regular medium with a fast action. That means it's really bendy, you know. Alright, so another rod, which is my last rod that I'm going to show you guys, I always carry at least one finesse pole, one spinning rod. I have a few, but I mean, I have a small boat, so I can't carry tons of rods, you know. But I tend to usually just have one finesse pole for basically everything. Ned rigs, shaky heads, and I actually have a drop shot. This is where it shines. The drop shot is killer. You can use a drop shot not just for like this style of fishing, but you can also use it for like bait fishing too. You know, even for like catfish and stuff like that. It's weird, but you guys could do it. This is a drop shot. This is how the drop shot looks right here. So I got myself a little, I think this is a circle hook. No, this is not a circle hook. This is a specific drop shot hook, as a matter of fact. And I'll show you guys what that looks like right here. It's a tiny little hook. And I think it's an octopus hook, but octopus / drop shot hook, you know, I completely forgot what these things are called, but it's a specific drop shot hook. Now, what I have right here is, I've been meaning to get rid of this line. I've just been kind of lazy, but this is fluorocarbon. I think this is 12-pound fluorocarbon. I like it a lot for spinning, only because it's really light, you know, but I would much prefer to have braid. So if your guys are going to be running finesse setup, you know, like I would use braid, maybe 20-pound braid. I mean, on this finesse, you don't need anything more than that, you know, especially if you're just going to be fishing for bass. I mean, even 20-pound braid would be plenty for striper. So at least for like me, if you're gonna go to Willow Beach, that's a complete different setup. You know, you want something much heavier, much stronger. But right now I have this setup right here. Like I said, this is a drop shot. It's small hook, and then I leave maybe like a foot of line underneath, and that's when I add the little drop shot weight. And then to tie it, you know, okay, so this is how I feel about knots. Like your go-to knot is like your best knot, you know. So I like to tie the improved clinch knot like on everything except jerkbaits. I have a different knot for that. But typically I tie everything with an improved clinch knot, and then for a drop shot, all you have to do is just tie on your hook, leave some line hanging, maybe at least like a foot or two, just if you want to shorten it or lengthen it up a little bit. You know, you can choose your length, but you want to tie on your hook just like a regular, like I said, improved clinch knot, or use your favorite knot. And then from there, you just get your tag end and insert it through the inside of the hole loop right here, and then that's when the hook tends to sit up straight like that, you know. I mean, it would look better if it was in the water, but that's just one way to tie this one. Now, with this specific rod, like I said, I would use it for Ned rigs, finesse setup, shaky heads, really small jigs, you know, only because I can cast it a lot further, you know. And then, like I said, I would typically have 20-pound braid on this, you know. If you have braid, it's a lot more sensitive than fluorocarbon or monofilament, and it obviously doesn't have any stretch. And typically I would usually do also a fluorocarbon leader line, just so, since it's finesse, I want the fish to not be scared of the bait. I want it to attract them. So if I was just running straight braid with no leader line, the fish more than likely get scared of the line, and they would obviously see it. So I would prefer, and I'm probably gonna change this to braid today, I would probably do 20-pound braid, like I said, you know, and then that would be good with maybe like a 2 foot, or I mean, not even a 2 foot, but depends like how deep you plan on fishing is how you're gonna choose how big of a leader line you're gonna have. I usually have like a 10-foot leader line, only because I like to fish the drop shot pretty deep, especially during summer. Right now, that's how I'm catching a lot of smallmouth and the largemouth. Alright guys, so that's going to be the end of this video, and I hope it actually helps you guys out on how I catch fish, and hopefully it showed you guys a thing or two on what I use as far as gear. And as usual, if you guys can, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. I highly appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. It helps me grow. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Tight lens.